Well, we're back with part 2 of the Melbourne Punters show, and as you can see, we've had a change. But we've got a really special guest this week. Not only do we have DK, who's a regular, or semi-regular. Hello, DK.
I've seen you for a while. Hi, Pops.
Welcome back, mate.
Thanks,
Welcome
mate.
back.
But we also have a man who spent a long time in the industry, and a very good judge and a very good man. We've got Howard Wilder.
Cheers, Juppy.
Can I say welcome, Howard, because it's good to meet you. I've known your name for a very long time. I wouldn't have a clue what you look like. So
that's on purpose. I'm trying to get my face out of the DK I've known, of course, for some time.
Yes, that's it. So Howie's another recently exited sports employee where he worked alongside Juppy and I, but Howie got a great history in wagering and form analysis and things like that. And when you go back to the days, I know you're one of the Anthony Dowdy alumni from the track, but probably even before that, Howie, how'd you come into it?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of people I've met in racing, you say how'd you get into it? So I'm about 10 years old. My grandfather is a newsagent back in the day when newsagents were gold mines. Yeah. They had a zone, terrific business, he knew what you're doing, he was a good businessman. And he was a member at, say, Moonee Valley, Flemington, Caulfield, not Sandown, that was too far away. His newsagent was in Essendon, and then he had another one after that in Smith Street. So anyway, I'm about 10 years old, we go to Caulfield races. Never, wouldn't know what a racetrack is or anything like that. Go to the races, and as I say, people you speak to, you go and you either get it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I just walked on and I just said, have a look at this place. The colour, like the silks, these jockeys, the horses, the track announcer, everything about it, the whole thing was just magic. And then you'd hear the barriers open, that ding when the barriers were released, and it just got me in. So
you're doing it excited when you got to go to the race as a kid.
Yeah.
I was going in the Bone Crusher, Bow Road era, things like that. I remember Dad took me to we saw Strawberry Road win a Cox Plate or something, sitting in the grandstand there, Frank O'Brien calling, and it was just the grandstand of rumble and just was. How good is this?
Exactly.
There is a uniqueness to race courses, isn't there? I can still remember the first time I walked onto a race course at Rosehill when I was, I think, about 11, and I can still remember that feeling and having the exact same feeling that you just described.
Yeah.
Just seeing all the the roses and all the nice gardens and just the colour of it, and hundreds of bookmakers, and then you just walk out, it's all the horses parading and the whips cracking when they come, all those things. It was just like, oh wow, this is magical.
It's sensory. So it either resonates with you or it doesn't. So we'd go to the races. My mum loved the races. My dad couldn't care less about it. So and it was my grandfather was my mother's father. So any chance we got, school holidays, she didn't drive, but she'd say, "Do you want to go to the track?" Absolutely. So off we go. She said, "I was having 50 cents. It didn't matter. We'd just go. I'd just sit in the grandstand, watch the whole thing unfold." Then I'm at high school. My best mate of mine loved the races. So whenever we weren't going to football, we'd get on the race train, we'd go to the track, just the two of us, 13, 14, you'd go up to the turnstiles, hang around, someone would come along, can you get us to the children's tickets? Children's tickets are free. And someone, you had to go in the adult. So absolutely, so we'd go. We'd chance our luck at the tote window, trying to have 50 cents each way. Some of them would bet you, some of them say, turn it up, son, you too. Anyway, then you just find, you'd always look for the grandma or the grandpa and say, can you put this on? Yeah, of course I can. So they put your bet on, you go and watch the race.
How good.
Had a ball,
And then, so how'd you, so Anthony, you obviously, Howard and I came through the Anthony Dowdy as many school of, hard knocks, but Anthony's a leading rails bookmaker in Melbourne and a great trainer of guys in the racing and bookmaking, and I started my form analysis stuff learning from Anthony, and you're probably similar. How'd you get a gig there?
So I don't know if you remember back in the day, the Herald Sun or the Age Form Guide would always have, a couple of times a year there'd be this tiny little lad as part of the form guide, bookmakers, clerks, coaching course, phone, and that was it, just the number. I got to about 16 and I'm thinking, I really want this to be a great job. Not so much thinking of it as a career, but next time I'm going to leave school and that'd be a great part-time job. So I read the number, I said, look, I'm only 16, can you work on the track before you're 18? You go, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. Okay, all right, so, who knows, just sign me up anyway. So it might have cost $50, you go to Richmond Town Hall, 3 or 4 nights, do the course, do cricket maths, which that's something I can do. And so he's got the old books and pencil, and this is how you write it down, and this is how you calculate it, and all the rest.
Who ran that course?
So Anthony ran it himself with his clerk at the time, the late and great Noel Cooper, who was a firm friend of Anthony's, wonderful man, and so they ran it together. It was a little bit like an episode of Minder. one of them's Arthur and the other one. They're hilarious guys, absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, we can imagine.
But he ran the class properly. Some people were pickles; they were never going to get a job, and other people could get through. So anyway, at this stage, so I do the course.
Just one thing on that course. You'd actually be surprised how many current bookmakers are still in the system that did that course.
Yeah,
there's a heap of them.
Yeah. Well, it was the only one doing it. There was nothing else like it. There's no TAFE, I don't know if TAFE even existed, but there was no other way of learning unless you're related to someone.
They offered you a gig on a bag or something.
Yeah. So anyway, so at this stage, I'm living out of Colac and working on a dairy farm, believe it or not, and thought. No, that's right. My father met an accountant at his bank, where we banked, and he was the son of the only bookie in Colac, the late Jack Francis O'Brien, who was like 70 years old, terrific bloke. And my dad happened to mention, my son's done this, Clark's thing. If there's ever any work, I'm sure he'd like to do it. Well, Jack had about 8 kids. They were all grown up. When I say grown up, they were all 19 years old to mid-30s, and he always had his kids working for him, but they were starting to want to do other things. So anyway, he got a phone call from Jack, and he says, he wouldn't mind a gig at the track. And I said, fantastic. So it was only Saturdays, of course. He was retired dairy farmer himself, and he only just worked the Western Districts, bet on Melbourne races. So the very first meeting I worked was at Hamilton. We go to places like Mornington, Mortlake, Camperdown, just all that area. Dunkeld once a year. It was great because he was an absolute gentleman. I'm a young guy trying to understand how it all works, and it was old school. So you go to the track, he didn't do any form, didn't have to. Everything on Melbourne, figures took care of itself, always win something. On the way home, stop at the Pyrenean pub, had 3 or 4 beers later, driving the Colac, and then I'd go out with his son, who was in the early 20s, we'd go for the night and party on and home.
It's funny, there's something that I'll pick up on there. It's funny, the old guy that I've been doing a bit for lately too, Ian Taylor, what a lot of people don't realise is that back in the day when there was a stack of bookmakers at the country meetings, there were 2 rings. There was a local ring and there was a Melbourne ring. And basically you had to pick, like now you go to most of the country meetings now, especially on a Saturday, and basically if you want to put up a Melbourne board you can, as long as you tick the box when you put in for the meeting. So most bookies now will bet both venues, but back in the day you had to pick one or the other.
Spot on, Jumpy. It was one or the other. Jack's son, Jimmy, he would have been in his 30s, he actually bet on the locals.
Okay.
Some of the other guys you might have known about, Gerard Daffy was probably working there at the time for Damien Gleeson. David McLaughlin's father was a bookie back in that day.
Yeah, the auctioneer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, characters, absolute characters. Absolute characters.
Fast forward to AD, then.
So then what happens is, so then we come back to Melbourne, the family, and I ring up AD, and he just remembered me, and I said, I'm back in Melbourne, and I'm thinking I wouldn't mind doing this career. So he said, okay, leave it with me if I hear of anyone, because all the bookies would go to AD.
Yeah, if you did the
right, yeah.
And he'd always go back to his notes if he'd just done the course and whatever. So he said, okay, leave it with me. I think he rang me back within 3 or 4 days, and at this stage, Noel, who I talked about earlier, said he wasn't that keen on going to bar joints anymore. Anthony's working in the bush as much as the city. He said, you can work at Healesville picnics this Saturday. Yeah, good as gold. So if I go, work for AD. Yeah, good's this? He's like, this is the guy who taught me how to do it, and now I'm actually working for him. And so he goes to Healesville, dominates the meeting, he just knows what he's doing, he's marking the meetings, they're putting up 2s, he's just, it doesn't take him long to realise, this bloke knows what he's doing. And anyway, so thanks very much, had the job, and then, because there was no long-term arrangement, and then he said, okay, I'll keep you in mind and see if I can, if I hear anything. So then he rings me during the week, and he said, listen, you can work this Saturday if you like. I said, okay, great, of course, I'm not doing anything else. Where are we going? He said, Flemington.
Oh,
no. I'm thinking to myself,
picnics to Flemington.
That's for last week. I spent my whole life, short life at this stage, and we're going to Flemington. I couldn't hardly sleep. We're off the fence, of course, we're on the rails, but and so. I don't know if it took weeks, it didn't take too long, and he offered me a full-time job.
Excellent. So at that stage, were you punting at that stage, or just?
So at this stage, as I say, I'm about 18. Wouldn't know how to do the form.
Yeah.
As I said, my experience to date is just working for guys that put up a set and bet, and I wasn't even motivated necessarily to do the form. If I had a bet, it was 50 cents each way.
Yeah,
so still at this age, it just didn't.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So eventually, it just becomes it's the start of the journey, and you do start to go home realising. Because up until this stage, you honestly believe you can't win on the pump. This is what the rest of the world wants to tell you. Every pickle wants to tell you you can't win on the pump. Seriously, it's a mug's game. But you start to see, you've got these professional guys going to the track, and at the end of the week, because I'm a clerk, at the end of the week they're in the credit, and you've got these other guys betting for credit that have got no idea, and they're in the debit column, you know, and AD's marking horses 9 to 4, and they're betting 4 to 1, and they're running 9 to 4, and they're stuff, you know. And because you're driving the country tracks a lot too, there's plenty of opportunity to learn. You know, discussing form. He had a still got a good friend of his, Mitch Mihalchik. They swap notes, both do the form independently, then talk about it. So you know that was a clever thing to know someone else who knows what they're doing. You always want to bounce your opinions around. No one gets everything right. And so it just, you know, you start to realise I probably should have a bit more of a think about doing some form myself. So
that's what I did.
Yes.
Because AD was getting the videos.
Yep.
In those days, the VHS cassettes off a guy in Essendon who was doing them. Send them out.
Yep.
On once a week. They come express post or whatever, and I said always that can you organise for me to get them? Yeah, here's the bloke's number, give him a ring.
Yep.
And so I always just sit down and watch things when I'm unlucky or wide. And AD had loved maidens, as we know. That was his favourite to find the maidens, let us know when the maidens are on in the bush if he's at Pilkington and whatnot.
Yep.
So I started sort of targeting, zeroing in on them, and so there's one he's been unlucky, and AD said, what price is Knackers at Moe? So 2 to 1, and you sort of know it's because we'll go and have something on it. Okay, have yours on AD, put my own on too. And
exactly.
Yeah.
No, I went to the trouble of sort of buying the videos for the non-tabs. I liked Gippsland, aside from sale. Never been sale. But so I Top Cat video, go down every Sunday morning, hot off the press, you know, like buying bread. You know, it's like, here's the tape from yesterday's non-tab meeting at Traralgon or whatever. And you'd have an edge back in that day because...
That'd be exciting, wouldn't it? Getting something not many other people have got.
No.
Well, that was our friend Gary Roberts'. He was the first one who went to the pro video guys back in the 80s and said, can I buy these tapes off you? You know, and he had that edge for that period in the mid-80s when he was playing that no one else had. He had the videos. And then he learned how to watch them, and he started walking tracks as well, things like that, and just had a massive edge till other people caught up. But he made the most. But
just for our young punters out there watching, sorry, DK.
You're right.
Howard just touched on a really important point. That's something that's really helped me through. When you're doing the form yourself, getting a second opinion after you've done the form is a really valuable thing. Will draw your attention to things you might have missed on the first run through. So
happened to me yesterday.
Happened to me on Saturday. When I went through the form first of all, I missed Show and Star. Talked to Big Trev. Trev alerted me to how well it runs off a 30-day break, and I had a second look at it, and we ended up having it on the betting front. So and I did that for years when I was started. I'd do the form myself and then get Mark Lambourne set, and then that would make me have a second look at certain horses. I think if you're not getting a second opinion, you probably should.
Find someone to do.
It's hard to you know all the things you should be looking for in theory, but at some point, we don't concentrate on 60 seconds of every minute. So you might be saying to someone, gee, I like this, and they turn around and say, what about the fact there's no pace? And it just might slip your mind.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
Good point. And it just can help. And sometimes they're only hopefully, most of the time they're reinforcing what you already think. And there's nothing wrong with that either, because you might be thinking, I'm going to put my max on this, and then when someone else says, oh, it's an absolute certainty.
Well, if you've done a whole meeting, Howard, you've assessed 100 horses. It's very easy to gloss over one too quickly.
Yes.
Because you're really looking for who the winners are, or who the shortest of candidates to win the races are. And it's very easy to eliminate horses a little bit.
It's funny when you say that, Potts, because back in the day, myself, Brendan Tupper, Mark Hunter, we all wound up at Best Bets, but for various reasons we're all close mates with David Price, who's now in Hong Kong. And one of Price's things was doing the form from the bottom way up. For that very reason, he said you'll miss value. That was his belief. He said you start at the top, you get down to 13, 14, 15, and you might be starting to hurry up.
Hurry up,
And he said sometimes they're the ones you find that are going to be 50 to 1 in the 20s and get the money. So that was one of there's a lot of different ideas from different guys, and that's something I never forgot about him.
Speaking of Best Bets, I think I've got Howard to thank for my start at ADs, because I think I took Howard's. I got the gig, Howard finished up, and AD was looking for someone fresh, and John Dow, I got to thank, recommended me, so I got the leg up. So you finished AD and then ended up at Best Bets?
Yeah, so
We'll pause there, we'll come back with Best Bets onwards in part 3.